Hey, True Believers England teen here with Dalton the Authenticator.
Good evening, everyone.
And we're going to be talking about the Sandman TV show, having ourselves a bit of a discussion. Excuse the background. I am in middle of redecorating. I'm going to have more statues and comics right here. And yeah. Anywho, we're like I said, we're going to talk about the TV show first. I do have to at least say a rest in peace to one Miss Olivia Newton-John. She passed away today. I didn't get the details, but I'm assuming she's been battling cancer forever and a day. This is, for my generation, this is something big. Maybe not yours. I know you're about, what, 30 years behind me here, Dalton, but damn.
I turned 27 a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you are about 30. Yeah. But yeah, she was huge in the early 80s, of course. Everybody knows her from Grease. I liked basically everything she had been in. But a lot of the movies were critically panned. Xanadu is a guilty pleasure for everybody. Twist of Fate, I enjoyed. Of course, the music. That's where a lot of us really glommed on. Physical, of course. She's got so many. Magic is one of my favorites. So she's got far more than just physical out there as far as music's concerned. But of course, Grease.
I know her from a couple different 80s movies that I've seen. Mm-hmm. I grew up kind of temporally inured. I sort of got bits and pieces of every era.
I can attach her to the world here, right? Because basically Xanadu, she plays a muse.
Yeah.
And in Twist of Fate, that's a movie about God wanting to destroy Earth. He promised he would never flood it again, but he's going to, because people seem bad. And if they could get John Travolta, if some angels could get John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John to be kind and love each other, then God won't destroy the Earth. So see, there you go, science fiction, fantasy kind of stuff. Yeah. It fits. But seriously, it was one thing. We were at dinner and they had these TVs all over, and I'm just eating my dinner, and Gail goes, "Oh no!" And we found out Olivia Newton-John died.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it until you had just mentioned it, and I was like, "Oh, not her too!"
Yeah.
If anything happens to Morgan Freeman, I'm gonna.
It's gonna happen to all of them. They're getting up there, man. I mean, everybody is.
I know. The Reaper comes for everyone, but it's just like I don't want to live in a world sans like Morgan Freeman. We already lost Betty White. I'm not over that. Okay.
All those people who made those great films that even now they're copying are in their 60s or 70s at this point. So it's 'tis the season, unfortunately. So
yeah, Jim Carrey is in his 60s, and that snuck the heck up on me. Like, what? And I was like, oh wait, he was in his 20s in the 90s. So yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I crossed the 50-yard line 2 years ago, and I'm still. It kind of surprises me. Well, we were watching Tower Heist, and we were like, wow, Ben Stiller's like 60, and it was like, yeah, but they were only a few years older. Of course they were that age. So yeah. It does. John Travolta, I saw he put out a tweet, and it was very heartfelt. You wanted it. Of all the celebrity reactions to this kind of thing, the only one I would care about is John Travolta.
Because those two were together in.
They go together,
not just like Grease, but in a bunch of different things together.
Yeah. The good thing is, of course, is this is look. Yeah, if you are an Olivia Newton-John fan, like a lot of people from the 80s were, it's still out there. Mm-hmm. Grease is still out there. The music is still out there. You can find it. Even Twist of Fate or Xanadu, if you want, you can hunt it down, check it out, and have a lot of fun with it.
Xanadu is kind of having a moment. A lot of people are discovering Xanadu from scratch. It's kind of becoming a thing. It's got a cult following behind it. It's good.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people are going back to it and saying, you know what? It's not as bad as you might remember. One thing, though, I would recommend to everybody that they might not even know is a Olivia Newton-John contribution, but it is her rendition of, I want to say, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. that is playing while there's this huge shootout in the movie Face Off. So even if you don't want to go check those out, check out that awesome John Woo action film. And at least the very least, you'll get her beautiful rendition of that song.
And I mean,
people are trying to kill each other.
That is, I guess, a good thing about actors and creatives that die is they kind of get a sort of immortality from just being in all the things they were in. Like even long after these people are dead, you can pop in a movie from when they were in their 20s, and then all of a sudden it's,
let's face it,
perpetually in their 20s again.
Neither I really saw Casablanca in the theater. Now, did we? That's just the way it is. Some of the viewers that I have might have never seen a Christopher Reeve Superman movie in the theaters. It's just one of those. Actually, you're 27. You may not have.
Yeah, what I remember when Superman Returns was in the theater, and I remember first seeing that on TV. But I had seen the Christopher Reeve Supermans long before that, because I was a young nerd, and one finds one's way into the nerd culture. But I've never seen one in the theater. It'd be an interesting experience too if they ever did the roll up and bring back thing.
As far as all that's concerned, and I'm going to say this doesn't have to do with Olivia Newton-John, but what you're talking about, they are going to be putting Jaws out on IMAX. Ooh. But rest in peace to Olivia Newton-John. Once again, all the stuff is still out there. But here's the thing. We're here to talk about a TV show. We're going to be talking about Sandman, and I'm going to say right out, it's been a few days, so I'm going to trust everybody's already seen it. Miss So says she's up to the 4th episode. By the way, hello to her. Maranya, Ed Brewer, Ara Glinian, how do you do? Tahilium's in the house. Undead Quinn, what's up? And I just going to warn you. We're gonna. Unfortunately, it's 10 episodes, so I'm not going to be doing the start at the beginning. And
we're not doing the blow by blow, although we might end up doing a section where we talk about some of it. Probably,
I can't remember this. I will, however, say if you are familiar with the books, the good thing is that they follow the books very well. I was actually surprised at how close this thing followed the story of the books. Now it does change a few things, but overall, issue 1 is 1st, 2, 3, 4, and they go.
The episode titles are named after the issues, and the content in them is relative mirror of the content in.
And I got to tell you also, as far as the whole format of the show, I would not be mad if 1 season, 2 books. Which is what they did here with Preludes and Nocturne and the Dollhouse.
Well, they kind of had to do that because otherwise it would have been 1 season, 1 volume, and therefore it would have been 10 seasons. But now they can do it in 5, which is a respectable TV season and a usual thing for Netflix.
And I think they would have had to pad it if they did in 1 season, 1 book. They would have had to pad it out, add stuff, and I don't think we would have liked what's been added, which in some cases we don't. So let me, do you mind if I address the elephant in the room?
Please.
Okay, so I know I've gained weight. No, I'm just kidding. So one of the things that had been going on is all freaking new shows, movies, or whatever it does, is that they sell this stuff on the social justice ticket. Oh my gosh, look, we've got a black this, we've got a gay this, even though they weren't black or gay. And the one show or the one book in comic book history that you shouldn't have to do any kind of swapping in would be the Sandman. The Sandman, if you read the books, the Sandman is full of queer content. It's got trans, it's got, now granted, because it takes place in England, I do agree. Not exactly the most racially diverse series. There's a black driver what's the one where they find destruction?
It was in
that one. Volume 6.
In the 8th volume. Yeah, it was in one of those 2, and I can't think of the
before the
actual
kindly
title.
ones. Yeah, but it really isn't a racially diverse crowd of characters in the Sandman. But as
And they
far
did
as
modernize it in some ways, but honestly, I didn't notice. Like it wasn't a thing.
have a good day, Miss So. Please watch after. So there was some swapping, but here's the problem. I don't care. Okay, I when it first came out, I voiced my I voiced my opinion on it. But here's the product we get, right? So I'm watching this, and okay, they race swap Lucy, and they race swapped Death,
Rose.
and they race swapped Rose, and then I started noticing, holy crap, they race or gender swapped or sex swapped everybody, damn near. And when I saw the black woman Catholic priest, I was like, you know what? No, I'm sorry. There's one thing when you do it because, yeah, we should get a few people in. But after a while, I felt that they were doing it.
You're talking about in episode 3 with Joanna and her
when I saw
friend,
that, I thought you're doing it to make a point. You're not doing it because it's better, it makes the story better, it makes the world seem more full,
or it just happened this way. That would have been fine too.
When I saw the black woman Catholic priest, I was like, now you're doing it to score points, and it pulled me out of the story for that section. But also something in that episode which it took where Joanna Constantine and I heard, or Constantine, or
and I didn't care. By the way, Jenna Coleman did fine. It wasn't.
She was good. She was good.
Thing.
I actually have no problem with the casting. Okay, as a matter of fact, I don't think anybody in this cast did a bad job. The young lady
the one thing I will say for this show is that every actor was acting their heart out, and it showed. So
yeah. The problem I had with the Joanna Constantine thing was that they gave her Newcastle. If you read the Hellblazer story, John Constantine's background is it has a little bit.
Newcastle is where it starts for him. It's where he goes from being the ne'er-do-well to being the anti-hero that he becomes.
And that's Newcastle is not in Sandman. Newcastle isn't brought up in Sandman, if I remember correctly.
No, it is. It is because he's having nightmares about it, and Dream fixes the nightmares for him.
Okay. You know what? I stand corrected then. I'm going to back off on this particular thing because I just did not remember that they had brought it in. Like, even they showed scenes in the book as well.
They showed the nightmares John was having in the book.
See, okay. You know what? I'm going to repost my what do you call it? I don't like it because give her own story that belongs to John Constantine. It just the way I hate the fact that a lot of normies are going to be thinking that that Thanos came before Darkseid. I freaking hate when they do that. Newcastle.
Well, the other thing is
so tied into John Constantine, it shouldn't be given to anybody else.
And not only that, but Newcastle is, thanks in large part to the Matt Ryan series, is one of the things that the normies are going to know John. Like everyone who's seen the NBC Constantine series, everyone who's seen the Legend of Tomorrow, where he was involved with it. Everyone who's seen anything with John Constantine for the last 10 years or so knows the at least basic outline of Astrologue, sacrifice to a demon, it was Nergal, there's a whole thing with him and Nergal. That everyone knows those basic plot points now.
Oh, MK is saying, was curious about the show. I heard mixed things. I hear it's good. Others say it's woke. Okay, first of all, let's get this out there once again. And this might be repeated often. According to today's standards, the original Sandman books, which have been praised for the last 30 years, would be considered woke because there is a lot of gay content. There's a lot of transsexual content.
It was made in the 80s at a time that was like the peak of the punk movement. That's the whole gist of what it was doing.
So anybody saying they added this or they did that, the worst you could say about is, like I said, the swapping thing. And except for except for the priest, that really bothered me. Joanna Constantine, I heard they didn't have the rights to show. I made a post saying basically
there was some rights issues with the DC stuff, and that's why most of the DC stuff got yanked.
Okay, so let's try to start at the beginning. We've got episode 1. It plays very much like the first issue. I'm glad that they let the you see this guy come in and he's talking to Papa Tyrell from Game of Thrones, or Lannister. Papa Lannister's there, and he says to him, "Aha! After tonight, we will capture Death, and we'll force Death to bring our children back." Of course, they capture Sandman.
Okay, there is a thing here that became an unwelcome trend that I noticed throughout the entire series. Every villain character gets a world's smallest violin confected sob story backstory out of nowhere. And in the case of Roderick Burgess, instead of it being like it was in the comics with him just being ambitious, just wanting to stick it to Aleister Crowley, just wanting power, it's, oh, I lost my first son, and by the way, now I'm abusive to Alex, even though I was never abusive to him in the comic. And I'm just like, number one, does every villain need a confected like sob story backstory? Is ambition and the desire to control Death not enough of a backstory to give him, honestly? And it wouldn't have bothered me if they had stopped it there, but they did it with almost every villain character. They did it with John D. Now he makes people honest instead of.
We'll get to that. Let's get to that. Okay. Let's start at the first issue.
Yeah.
And so they bring in, maybe I am going to go issue to issue. I don't know. Anywho, this whole thing, I actually really enjoyed that first episode where basically it was the first issue. And I was like, wait a second, this show might actually be really good. There were a couple of surprises. As far, like I said, mostly it was of the casting notes. Maybe I'm thinking second episode here. But I thought very much so. First issue, I love the fact that the boyfriend at the end was the one that decided, you know what, I'm going to release this guy because I don't feel right about it and all that kind of stuff. But overall, everything was cool, and I thought it was a great start. Go ahead.
There were two things right off the bat that they changed that I liked. Number one was the first scene where Dream was giving the narration, and we saw what the dreaming looks like when it's healthy. That was nice. That was a nice touch. That just based on that first scene, I was like, okay, maybe this won't be a complete crap show. Another thing I liked that they changed was in the comics, it's never really alluded to until you get a couple of years later down the line with Sandman Overture, which is terrible. Why Dream was outside of the dreaming to be captured in the first place. In the show, it's because the Corinthian got out ahead of time, which I liked because it prevents the ambiguity and it prevents them from turning Daniel Hall, if there is even a Daniel Hall later on, into a Mary Sue, or at least not as much of a Mary Sue as he became.
I liked it as well because when the Corinthian is not somebody who's really in the Sandman comics a lot. But here he's built up. So by the time his issue came around, by the time his episode came around, you knew him to be a threat. And it was explained that even though he was created by Sandman, because of certain situations, Corinthian may actually be a threat to Sandman.
He's playing the game because he doesn't either want to go home or he doesn't want to get returned to the state of being raw dream stuff. And so that's why. There is a problem with it to some degree, though, especially in the first episode that I noticed, because it turns Roderick Burgess into an idiot. Because instead of Roderick Burgess being able to figure things out for himself or already know some things, like knowing that he needs the crystal cell that can contain Dream's physical presence and so on and so forth, now the Corinthian shows up to explain that to him, and I'm just like, that doesn't help me like Roderick Burgess.
I don't mind it because basically what you have is in Papa Terrell or Burgess, it's the same guy, the same actor. That's
Charles
who we're talking about. Yeah, thank you. My memory, I can't even remember a certain word right now, so I am having a hard time. I will say this. Austin saying the phrase Sandman comics would be considered woke today really dampens my excitement to read the original comics. Here's the thing. They were written with story in mind. This is the way you would want this kind of stuff. I mean, if there's going to be a gay character, fine. Okay, gay people exist. Who fucking cares? But this isn't, by the way, I didn't swear right there. This isn't that. Sandman just so happened to have these characters in the stories.
Yeah. And
that's the way to do it. They didn't say, hey, you know what? We're going to put this out because, you know, we got to make ourselves look good.
Here's the other thing. You got to remember philosophically back in the day, there was a different underlying philosophy behind it all. Now it's we have to make everything political in order to turn it into a means to an end and deconstruct everything.
Identity political.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Back in the day, it was about the like tradcon evangelical family values types were stifling freedom of expression. So the left wing was where the artists and the people in favor of freedom of expression went. And that's kind of the background. Like I say, it was written at a time, it was very much embracing the goth movement and the punk movement. A lot of the aesthetic and a lot of the characters are informed by the goth movement and the punk movement and the let's stick it to the overbearing tradcons.
So eventually Sandman makes it out. Somebody breaks the circle and he makes it out and he has to go hunt down his things, his tools. When he was taken, his helmet, his ruby, and his pouch of sand had been stolen. So now he wants to rebuild Dream, which has fallen apart in his absence. And so he goes about finding these. The first thing he searches for is his pouch of sand. And I remember that, and I was thinking, as far as this is concerned, where there is a scene at the end of the issue where we meet the young lady who took the pouch, who ends up with the pouch, and she has become her house. She has become it's very grotesque. She's stretched out, flesh is everywhere, and it's very disgusting. And I was like, you know, this could be something. And when we go,
they don't do it.
Yeah, when we go in and we see it, she's an emaciated person who, it seems, instead of her flesh being stretched out by the dream and such like this, what it seems to be is she has been dreaming. She's been staying in one place, not eating, not taking care of herself. So she looks like Sloth from the movie Seven. She's just emaciated. I get it for budgetary reasons. I get why they did it. It's like the real world reasons. I get why they did some stuff.
Yeah.
But I do have to admit, I was a little bit disappointed because I thought they could really go gross.
And there was a lot of that throughout the series, was that a lot of the darker horror specific aspects or the dark fantasy aspects were softened or avoided to the point of almost not being there. And that really hurt me, because one of the things that makes Sandman awesome is it kind of touches, whether it's intentional or not, on all the history of comics. Like you've got your horror elements from the horror comic days. You've got your Golden Age homages. You've got your Silver Age homages. Sandman, unlike Watchmen, which deliberately subverts the comic book genre or the superhero genre, Sandman is sort of the opposite, because it's sort of a love letter to comics and gives every aspect of comics a kind of mythic weight. And not only was I missing a lot of the DC connections, which were some of my favorite moments in the comic, although those I wasn't surprised at not seeing because I knew they couldn't do it. So I was like, okay,
Yeah,
they're
they
not
weren't
going to
going to
do
have
the DC
Martian
connections.
Manhunter. I never thought I would see like Martian Manhunter in this TV show.
Yeah, no, I still miss those moments because a lot of them were my favorite moments. But
well, yeah, of course, yeah.
But the one thing I kept missing was there never seemed to be any scale. Even in the first episode, you got to see the like slow progression of the decades in the comic going by and by and by. So you got to see Alex Burgess, the son of Roderick Burgess, transition from the like 19th century occultism of his father's era through the like psychedelia of the 60s and so on and so forth. Here, it's like maybe 20 minutes focused on like the slow progression of time, and then it's a smash cut and like 80 years have gone by and the entire moving through eras thing has been skipped over. And one thing I was really surprised we didn't see that I thought for sure, especially with the current zeitgeist being how the current zeitgeist is, I was surprised we didn't get to see Ellie Marston, Stefan Wasselman, or Daniel Bustamante,
You
because
have to explain. We have people who might not know what that is.
okay, yeah. In addition to how the passage of time affects the people who were directly involved in capturing Dream in the comics, we got to see how it affected the world over. And so we often would follow people from different parts of the world, like a kid in Jamaica who was meant to be a famous artist or writer, but because Dream got captured, the dream that was meant to inspire him to be those things died inside him and basically turned him into a living zombie. His name was Daniel Bustamante.
I think one of the reasons being is because it's budget constraints, real world problems, budget constraints. Also, these characters truly wouldn't mean anything to the larger story, and it would just serve to confuse the audience in a TV show. In a book, obviously, it's done a lot easier, a lot better, and I would say. Yeah.
It's about scale though, and that's one thing I was missing. And the other thing was, it often felt like the stuff that was actually in the book got the Cliff Notes treatment, and then they would spend like 10 or 15-minute stretches on things that weren't ever referenced in the book. And I was just like, if you're going to spend money on anything, please spend money on stuff that was actually relevant to the original material.
Bring the book to life the way it was done. Hey, let me answer something here from Austin P. He says, okay, that sounds better, but as the authenticator said, it caused some hubbub with the evangelicals, which is a sign that I wouldn't like it much easier, but it does sound like the story went first. And we're talking about the comic books here back in the late 80s, early 90s. And that's the truth is yeah, Austin, you might read it and go, oh yeah, not for me, but the books are worth a try. It really is. Actually, I'll cut to the chase and say that the TV show is worth a try. As much as I didn't like the Catholic priest part, I did like basically everything else. So it is worth it. Joanna Constantine. Joanna Constantine. Wasn't she who's the boss? I don't know who. Okay, so I don't know why I said that. But Joanna Constantine, she's in this particular episode we're talking about, and I think she did a fine job. It's just I think they should have come up with something different for her.
Or better yet, if they had dropped the hint of like, oh, my cousin John or something, like, because the thing is, the Constantine family at large is already referenced within the Sandman, because you've got Dream having a long-standing relationship with John's ancestor Joanna, and then you've got, I think even Hob Gadling at one point during Men of Good Fortune mentions there was also a Jack Constantine that he knew in the interim. So like the long-standing relationship between Dream of the Endless and the Constantine bloodline is established. So it really would have been nice to have gone like, oh, my cousin John or something along those lines would have also been nice. because the Constantine family just generally get screwed by the supernatural. It's what the Constantine family do. But
I did like the inclusion of Mad Hetty when I saw that. I'm 208 years old. I know what I'm telling you. I love that character in the books. She was also in Death, the High Cost of Living, and I do recommend.
Which I'm wondering if they'll adapt, if they'll take some of the spin-offs and turn them into episodes.
This is a hit. People are liking this. They would be dumb not to take the Death character off in her own direction. Because look, that was also. Let's go over to this one. Let's go over to
Sound of Her Wings.
Sound of Her Wings. Obviously, this was the big controversy because, and I understand why it's controversy. Because for 30 years, we wanted to see pale-faced goth Death, which was so cool at the time that she became her own character. She had her own fan base. Statues, comics, the whole nine yards.
To the point of almost upstaging Dream, which kind of annoyed me because Dream was always my favorite character. But
so when they decided to bring her to life, people wanted to see that. Like they've been waiting for 30 years.
Yeah, and sort of related to that, but not exactly the same. That was one thing that kept kind of pulling me out of it, was the fact that they didn't even bother giving the Endless their endless makeup and making them look like
we're gonna get to that. That's one of my other big freaking problems with the show, but we're gonna get to that. Let me talk about I gotta say one thing though. The actress who plays Death, I don't know the names and I'm not looking them up.
Kirby Howe Baptiste.
Okay, there you go.
She played Simone on The Good Place for anyone that knows that show.
She was wonderful. She when she approaches people who are about to die, she is exactly the way she would have been in the comics. And very charming, very lovable, very somebody who you want to go with.
The acting is the strong point in this show. If you know, for all of the problems I have with everything else, and there are many, the actors know how important this story is, and you can tell it's important to a lot of them, and they are acting their heart out. The writing and the world doesn't often give them much help, but they do act their heart out.
They changed some of the deaths. One of my favorite was the guy who was basically an immortal, one of the few people who have been living hundreds and hundreds of years, and he gets crushed by some bricks or something like that. I might be remembering the book wrong. They didn't do the line though. One of my favorite lines of in the Sandman books was the guy's like, well, you know, I got like 150, 200 years. I forget what the number was. That's a long time, right? And she says, you got the same as everybody else. You got a lifetime. And then, of course, the next scene, and they did include this, is where
that wasn't in Sound of Her Wings. That was in one of the other books.
Okay. Well, okay, then maybe that's why we didn't get it. But they do show the scene where she walks in and there's a mom taking care of her baby. The mother walks out and Death takes the baby. And she's whispering to the baby, yeah, I'm afraid so. That's all you get. And you don't hear the baby speak, but you hear her speaking to the baby. And I liked that because in the book, the baby talks to her.
The one I missed was the stand-up comedian who gets electrocuted. And that was another thing that was missing a lot throughout this series. Was I was missing a lot of the horror elements, and I was also missing the dark comedy and the like subtle dry humor. I was missing a lot of that too, especially in the scene in Imperfect Host where he's talking to Hecate, where he's talking to the 3-in-1, the Fates, where he's talking to them. In the comic, they rib him the entire time because they're the Fates and they already know what's coming down the line. And they didn't do one of my favorite exchanges, which is he says thank you to that. He says thank you to them, and they go, "Oh, will you listen to him? You don't thank the Fates, Dreamkin. We haven't helped you. Your troubles are only just beginning." And then they disappear.
Let's see. Dominic is saying Joanna Constantine is a real character in the DCU as a distant relative of John Constantine. Yep. In this case,
she shows up. She shows up in Men of Good Fortune, just like she's supposed to. But both versions are in here.
Let's see. Sandman was the first and last comic book graphic novel that won the award for best short story. That's right. We haven't gotten to that. That is not in season 1, by the way.
Season
that
1
should be in season 2. No.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah, season 2 it would be, because that is the
Dream Country, and Season of Mist would be.
That's
season 2.
They're definitely going to be doing that because they do set up for that.
Because they already set it up during the Men of Good Fortune part of Sound of Her Wings, which I have to say I didn't like them combining Sound of Her Wings and Men of Good Fortune into one episode. I wanted Men of Good Fortune to be its own separate episode.
Yeah, but I thought it worked. I mean, overall, it worked.
I mean, this is a minor gripe, but if they were gonna combine them into one episode, I would have done the Men of Good Fortune stuff first, and then cut to Dream on the park bench, all depressed, and then have the death thing.
To let you know what he's talking about, the Men of Good Fortune. There's a character named Hobbs, and he is in a pub with Death and Morpheus walk into. And this guy Hobbs is talking very loudly, saying that death is for suckers. The only reason why you die is because you've seen people die before you and you think that's what you're supposed to do. And he says, I am not going to be that rube. I'm going to live forever. And Dream and
everybody dies, but why the hell should I is the line.
And so Dream and Death decide to play a game. Dream goes over and says, okay, I'll meet you here in 100 years. And they do. And so every 100 years you meet this character, and he tells about what's happened the last 100 years. And so it's kind of like Sandman version of the Carousel of Progress from Disney. Now is the time. Now is the best time. So
that is a very strange connection, but I'm not.
So yeah, basically it is, because you meet up. Hey, it's a new scene. Let me talk about all the wonders that we had the last 100 years. I
do as a history nerd. I love the fact that like it gets to the Elizabethan era, and Hobbes is riding high. How could things possibly get better? And then, of course, the next century, it's the Jacobean era, which is right during the burning times and the witch trials and the Inquisition and stuff. So it's like, oh, they tried to drown me as a witch because I had been living there too long. Whoops.
Yep, he lived in the same place for 40 years.
History isn't a straight line, folks. There are ups and downs.
Yeah, and it's a good story. And then the other one, the Sound of Her Wings, is we meet his sister. And it starts on a park bench. And I wondered if they were going to do the line where she says, what do you get? Now, they did do the line where it says, you know what you get when you overfeed the birds, or whatever it is.
The fat pigeons.
Fat pigeons, yeah. And hello. And basically it is, it's from Mary Poppins. She says it's from Mary Poppins, but then in the book she continues. I love that movie. Dick Van Dyke has a horrible accent, but I love that movie. And that's one thing a lot of English people have said about them. A great movie. Not a great accent, I thought they would do that, but they passed on. When it was originally announced that Death was going to be black, I tweeted out saying, as long as she feels as she's portrayed in the comics, and Neil Gaiman got mad at me for even insinuating that she wouldn't. That's an ignorant thing.
Yeah, Neil himself is a little bit of a problem with this, because for all that he post hoc decided that Sandman's about change, and that is something that he pulled the entire way out of his ass after he got flack for screwing it to DC and not paying attention to the in-universe logic, it seems like he hasn't changed in the last 30 years, and he still thinks it's edgy to try to stick it to the trad cons. And unfortunately, Neil, whether you like it or not, man, you got old, you got set in your ways, you sold out, and now you are the establishment.
To me, it's just as racist, because every time they bring up this kind of stuff, it's like saying, hey, look, guys, black people know how to do things. And the rest of us are like, yeah, we know. Okay, it's not new. It's not new that gay people exist. It's not new that black people could do things. It's not new that the women can actually go out in the workforce. And guess what, guys? We've been seeing it now for a long in time. We just want it done well. And we don't want you to, like, you're freaking building a goddamn Hoover Dam every time you do this. You're not doing anything special. So stop announcing it as if, oh my God, can you believe these for the people can do these things?
And for the record, it doesn't. The argument that always gets made is, well, it's not for you, it's for that community. And I'm like,
yeah, that's ridiculous.
I happen to be gay and crippled, and I'm sick of this now. Can we stop?
Yeah. They're not adapting Dream Country, to my understanding. That is so bad. No, Nerdette, I disagree.
They have to, because Dream Country is the volume that contains Calliope and Midsummer Night's Dream, and that Midsummer Night's Dream is the issue that won the literary award there, and Neil Gaiman has gone out on several interviews and said that's the one that he's anticipating them adapting the most. So
also, it's got the Dreaming of Cats, or am I quoting T.S. Eliot there? It's
the dream of a thousand cats.
I love that issue. That's one of my favorite issues. I want to see that adapted as well. So yeah, I disagree. I don't, and by that, Nerdette actually says they're not adapting Dream Country, to my understanding, and hope, which means she doesn't want to see it. I want to see the whole story. Let's do all of them.
No,
I think short stories and everything. Yeah.
I think what'll happen is, much as with this season adapted both Preludes and Nocturnes and The Doll's House. I think next season is going to adapt Dream Country and Season of Mist, and then the season after that's going to be adapting Game of You and is August the first one that gets adapted? It's like the month themed ones.
That is actually
I was thinking so.
Yeah.
So yeah, I assume the way they're going about it is they're doing two trades per season, and that way they'll be able to tell all 10 volumes plus maybe a few of the spin-offs in 5 seasons, and then instead of 10. That's the way I'm assuming they're going to do it. And a lot of the more meaningful stories are the just dream bebopping around the centuries doing dream things. So I really would hate to miss those.
Oh, and they're talking about the bird, and I gotta say, before I started this, Twiddles was on my shoulder and just basically running all around, and I noticed, and I've been trying to lean away, but yeah, he tagged me.
Synergy.
Yeah, I got most of it up, but he tagged me. There you go. They say it's good luck. I don't see how that's good luck. Yeah, I don't. Anywho, let's move on. We did the first. He gets the pouch, and then next he has to go after his ruby. And this is what for some reason he went to hell first.
Helm first.
He went to the helm first. Okay. All right. Yeah, let's go to hell. And okay. I liked it. And I was watching this with Gail, and I said, okay, they haven't mentioned it yet. And I know they made a few mentions about his girlfriend that he condemns to hell. The Morpheus condemns his girlfriend to hell. By the way, let's take a moment aside and talk about Morpheus. Now, I do agree with you. I miss the pale, pasty in the eyes with the universe inside of them.
Skin like the moon, eyes like stars, and hair and clothes refined from shadow.
And basically, we get emo goth. I mean, in the 80s, it was goth. In the 2000s, it was emo. It's basically the same thing. And I got to tell you something. It works. At first, I thought, oh, wow, this guy is going to be boring soon because he neither changes his cadence nor does he change his facial features. He just speaks. But it fits and it works. But he shows only time he shows emotion is or shows a change in facial features, whatever, the facial expression is when he absolutely needs to. But beyond that, he is very calm, and damn near everything he does And I thought it worked. After a while, I was like, okay, I see the choice here. I see why they went with this.
I have to disagree. Well, again, the actor does his darndest. He does, and it's as good as can be expected given what they did. I still had a hell of a time listening to this mid-20s goth kid, and going, okay, you bad cosplayer, you go away and give us the real design, please. It kept pulling me out, um, because it's not just a cosmetic choice in the comics. In the comics, the reason why the Endless look like that is because they're not human.
Exactly.
They are the raw material of the universe, like compressed into a form that's trying to mimic a human form. And so their skin is meant to mimic a moon, but without any craters. Their eyes are supposed to mimic stars. Their hair and clothes are supposed to mimic shadows. Like, and I kept waiting, and the annoying thing was, a few times, especially in Sleep of the Just, which that title doesn't make any sense anymore because there's no Wesley Dobbs to reference it, but never mind. They do actually have his eyes darken and brighten up like they are made of stars. And I'm like, okay, so you can do the effect, which brings up the question of, why aren't you continuing to do the effect?
And yeah, it's real world problems. It's the budget. Let me answer a couple of questions that was asked. One was from scale 1 to 10, how dark would you say this show is? 7. I mean, there are some places where it really does go up there. Like we're about to talk about, what is it called? 48 hours or whatever it is.
24/7 in the show. It was 24 hours in the comic.
Right. So we're going to be talking about that one, and that is a dark comic and it's a dark episode. But overall, like if I were to grade the whole thing, maybe an 8. I would say it's an 8. It's not the darkest comic show. I actually think if you get past the humor, The Boys is an incredibly dark show. So is The Watchmen, because of its nihilism.
I'm gonna be a little harsher and say a 5. It's a 5 on the darkness scale. The comic was an 8. The show was a 5.
All right. And then another question: how would you pitch Sandman to someone who has no prior reference to the comics? That is, if you would recommend the show highly to a noob. I would. I am the good cop. We talked about this. I'm the good cop in this one, by the way.
Yeah, I'm definitely the bad cop.
I really enjoyed this show. Once I got past everything, of course, that one thing with the Catholic priest did pull me out of it. Overall, I enjoyed the show a lot. I ended up watching this show on a day I knew on Friday night. I stayed up all night long, knowing that Saturday night is the night that I'm going to stay up damn near all night long doing the auction. It really hurt me because I slept my ass off on Sunday. And
I stayed up till 3 in the morning waiting for Sandman to drop, and I got to Sound of Her Wings before I was like, I need sleep. And then I woke up Saturday morning and finished the other 6 or other.
We started the show at midnight. I stopped it at 10 o'clock in the morning. I just couldn't stop watching it. It is, in my opinion, excellent. With a few flaws, but nothing that pulls it out of nothing that is a deal breaker to me. So here's how I would pitch it. It is a very good telling of the comic book without being the comic book. It's all about a guy. It's all about the concept of dreaming brought to life and how it affects the real world. That would be a short way. But yeah, that's how I would do. But check it out because the acting is awesome. And the visuals, for the most part, work.
I would say read the comic first, though. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't read the comic first.
I think so. I think I agree with you on that. I think I agree with you on that because if you, a lot of times though, if you watch a show and then you read the book, what ends up happening is you watch the show, and if you like it and you read the book, you get so much more. But if you read the book and then you watch the show, it almost feels like a Cliff Notes version of the show. So I don't know. I'm of two minds on what to do first. But I want to talk about 24/7. I want to talk about this because it in the first book, in Preludes and Nocturne, this is my favorite issue.
Yeah, that's your favorite.
It's the horror issue. In it, Dr. Destiny, a villain of the Justice League, we find out that the gem that he's been carrying around all this time, that's been giving his power, is actually
the Dreamstone of Dream. Yeah,
there you go. It belonged to Dream, and we see Destiny get out of a. We see him getting out of a mental institution. Okay,
it was Arkham in the comic, but I don't think it is in the show.
It wasn't in the TV show. And he makes his way to a diner where he's sitting, he's talking, and he ends up manipulating the people who come into the diner. That's the basic premise of the show. He does change, and it seemed like in the comic book, it was because Dr. Destiny is a villain and he wants to manipulate these people just for fun.
He wants to rule the world, and he's happy to screw with people. Is the main.
In the TV show, we're given more backstory. We see a woman that we saw earlier in the first episode, and he hates the fact that he feels like he'd been lied to all of his life. So he uses the stone to get everybody to be so freaking honest to the point where they're at each other's throats and begin to cause violence to each other. That's all I want to give about this episode. I don't want to give too many details.
Yeah,
I think this episode is, if you put Twilight Zone on it and just you could put it there in there. It doesn't have to be a Sandman show. This could be any horror anthology show.
Yeah,
and work.
This is where I was surprised that you didn't have more problems with this episode, because I knew how much you loved.
Yeah, I loved it. Though I don't think this episode got as brutal as the comic book, and that's where I had the problem. But beyond that, what they do, of course, like the whole honesty thing, I was fine with that because it's a concept. I was very aware of the audience while I'm watching this movie or watching this TV show. And let's face it, a lot of Netflix TV shows are just 10-hour movies anyway. Mm-hmm. But I was very aware of the audience, and I was very aware of why they would make certain decisions. And maybe this is my way of giving it a pass of sorts. But I understood that a guy sitting there with a Dreamstone, maybe your normie audience member can't get their head around the concept, but they definitely could get around the concept of blatant honesty. In all honesty, a lot of people don't realize that sometimes lying a little bit keeps you sane, or actually keeps the peace.
Well, that's one area where it really pulled me out, because I could see kind of the philosophical underpinning of, well, if we were all compelled to be honest, then we would all destroy each other. And it's like, I don't think that. I don't think that that's the only way, forced honesty would work. I think that's a very nihilistic approach to like human nature, to say that you have to, be buried under 47 masks and veneers of politeness, or else we're all going to turn into an Antifa mob. I found that to be incredibly condescending, incredibly nihilistic, and it once again gave a human motivation to a character that didn't need it. Meanwhile, and this was the main reason why this kept bothering me, was they kept giving the villains human motivations after human motivations that were confected entirely for the purposes of the show and weren't in the comic. Meanwhile, Dream is treated with contempt and incompetence the entire way through, to the point where the denizens of the Dreaming would rather answer to Lucian the librarian than to the Lord of Dreams himself. And Dream is treated Dream is essentially treated like Joffrey Baratheon from Game of Thrones, like he's an incompetent monarch who we all just have to be on eggshells around.
I know where you're coming from. I know where you're coming from because there's a scene with what's his name, the Pumpkinhead guy. What's his name again?
Marv.
Yeah,
Pumpkinhead.
Yeah, Marv. Yeah. There is a scene where he comes in and he's saying that kind of stuff, and when he said
Matthew
it to Lucian,
Matthew does it too earlier.
Hold on, just a second. When he says it to Lucian, I was like, okay, that's fine. But when it's brought in and Sandman's there, I was thinking, no, he should have really gone off. Let us understand who the ruler of Dream truly is. And yeah, I think that is one of the cases where them trying to play up to Twitter didn't work, because Lucian herself, if we're going by the TV show, Lucian would never do that. Like
Lucian was a loyal servant in the comic.
An advisor, to be sure, but knew the line and wouldn't step over it. And there were a couple of times where she was invited to step over. And yeah, I agree with you. Both of us see the same point. I just think that for you, it's more of a deal breaker than it was for me.
Yeah, the Mervyn saying it didn't bother me quite so much, because Mervyn is a minor character, and it's established that the Dream kind of have their own machinations sometimes, like Brute and Glob famously in the comic had their own machinations the whole way through, so that's fine. And of course, Cain and Abel. Cain in particular is always being Cain, but the moment that it pulled me right out of whatever enjoyment I could have had was in the Constantine episode, was in Dream a Little Dream of Me, when Matthew does it, and I was just like, "Are you serious?" Like, not only that, but in his first meeting with Dream was just like, actually, I would rather answer to Lucian. And it's just no,
especially considering his entire existence was on the line at that point. Yeah. Okay, so as far as 24/7 though is, I did enjoy it because I thought this was a director's episode. In all honesty, it's the tension, it's the way that the camera moves. It's the music. Everything about it creates a very tense situation. Now, Nerdette was asking, scale of 1 to 10. We'll do scale of 1 to 10. How accurate do you think the Sandman is? I'm interested because I believe it's more accurate than you do, but how accurate would you put the Sandman? Obviously, we mentioned the character stuff, but let's go with story and such like that. So the stuff that casual readers would notice, because you're beyond casual reader.
I'll give it like a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10 for accuracy. Because it's not that the broad strokes of the story aren't there. It's how they're assembled and the way they're actualized. It's the problem, I think.
You got to think of it like this. You're getting a review here from someone who's lived in the room, somebody who's visited the room a lot, and we also got to think that there's people who have never been in the room. And by that I mean Dalton's lived in this particular room, so Dalton knows where every little piece of furniture, every book, everything is supposed to be.
Can I tell a story?
Let me finish my analogy. I've visited this room a lot, so I don't know where everything is. I've got a really good idea, though. But somebody who's just coming to this won't notice shit that has been moved around. Go on ahead.
I mean, to give you guys an idea of just how important this story is to me, around 2015, I had been suspended from college, and my life was kind of crumbling down around me, and to the point that I was even contemplating suicide a little bit. And that year for Christmas, my mom got me the hardcover omnibuses for Neil Gaiman's run of the Sandman. There were only 2 at that point. Right now, I think there's 3, because they threw in some of the spin-offs into a 3rd volume. But that story single-handedly kind of pulled me off the ledge a little bit. So this story will always have a very special place in my heart, to the point that it's also informed my spiritual practice in a lot of ways. That's a story for a different day entirely. But this is a very important story to me. So
and I understand this, and that's why I say, obviously you're a person who's lived in this room, so you're more sensitive to the changes than a lot of people would be. But okay, so I guess there's one episode I skipped over it, but I wanted to talk about it because there's something in there I really like but don't like, and then there's something that I absolutely love, and that's the issue where they go to hell, the episode where they go to hell, and they're going to get the helmet from Lucifer and whatever demon who had possession of it. And I don't want, I'm not going to linger too long because it's an hour in and we got to kind of pick it up to get, we got a whole other half of the season to go.
We still have Doll's House to do. Yeah.
But the thing is let's talk about Lucifer, played by what's her name?
Gwendolyn Christie.
Gwendolyn Christie. And I mentioned this before, we were talking about it at the auction. When Tilda Swinton played Gabrielle in Constantine.
It is so similar, isn't it? I had that same thought.
But the thing is, the problem there, and I thought Christie was, once again, acting is done very well. But there's a problem with trying to do something androgynous with Gwendolyn Christie. Don't quite put my hands on it, but there's just two big problems with Gwendolyn Christie playing androgyny. And that's something that, of course, Tilda Swinton playing Gabrielle in the original, with the better version of Constantine, I should say. Didn't have to worry about it
right now.
They were able to make sure that the chesticles weren't so prominent. I'm like, how can you be androgynous with the fun bags there, Gwendolyn? That was the only thing that took me out. Otherwise, I thought she was really good at it. The other thing, I was talking to my wife, I said, I don't know, are they going to mention the girlfriend? And sure enough, they do the whole thing.
Nada shows up.
His girlfriend who rejected him, so he had her condemned to hell. And this is when they really start showing the Sandman is not a good guy. The Sandman is not what we would consider a good person. We find out he has condemned this woman to hell. She's been there for what, 10,000 years at that point, or definitely a few thousand.
Yeah. And now, to be fair, the entire reason why he fell in love with Nada to begin with was because Desire was screwing around, because Desire is a narcissistic little shit of a concept.
And she gives the line, "I can't get out of hell until you forgive me. Do you forgive me?" And he says, "No. Yeah, you're gonna be burning. You're gonna be suffering."
But yeah, the line is, "It has been 10,000 years, and I still love you, but no, I have not forgiven you."
Yeah, it's so I love that they did that. And then in the comic book, there's a battle, and it's a battle of wits where Lucifer says what they are, and then Sandman has to counter. So she says, "Hi, I'm a snake." He says, "I'm a horse," horse, or so forth, so on. Point being is they had to one up each other. It's a great battle. And I loved it so much more in this TV show than I did in the comic, just because they were able to visualize a lot better. That to me was damn near perfect.
There was one element of it that I liked in here that wasn't in the book, which was when their constructs get hurt in this show, the damage is carried over. Like, for example, the first sort of gambit in the exchange is in the comics Corazon, but in the show Lucifer, because we have Gwendolyn Christie, and gosh darn it, we're going to use her, god darn it.
I know, of course, yeah.
Was "I am a dire wolf," and then Dream's counter was "I am a hunter, horse-mounted wolf stabbing," and you actually get to see the effect of the spear lancing into Lucifer as a result of this.
Yeah, I like that because they felt each, because at the first it was just like, okay, in the comic it's a word game, okay, but in the show you actually see that they're being affected by what they're changing into. Don't want to spoil it, but this is basically the end. Sandman has all of his stuff, and he's like, okay, now let's go forth and get my dreams back, because what ended up happening is while he was gone, a whole bunch of dreams went into the waking world, and now he wants to collect them, including the Corinthian, who we have been seeing throughout the show doing all sorts of
who apparently has just been out this entire time doing what Corinthian does. So,
and one of the things he's built for is to inspire evil in other people, and that's where the rise of the serial killer has come from. So we go and we meet this girl Rose, another race swap, but in all honesty, doesn't matter. Now, Rose in the comic is described as someone who looks far younger than she is, and this comes into play later in the comic. Yeah. And it's basically she meets up with her grandmother, who has been asleep because she was one of the people when Dream went away that fell down with the sleep sickness.
Those with the strongest connections to the dreaming, when Dream got yanked out of the dreaming itself was like, we need to fill the hole he left, so everyone with a close connection to the dreaming, get your arses back here. So they literally sleep their lives through.
Yeah. And her grandmother is one of these, and okay, I think you're gonna have to pick this up. Let me go to the restroom. You tell us the general story of the dollhouse, and we'll get to details in just a bit. Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay, so basically, Unity Kincaid wakes up from having what's known as the sleeping sickness because, while Dream was captured, the force of dreaming itself kind of went AWOL, because when the organizing intelligence of a given concept and force of nature is missing, so too the, organization of that force of nature is missing. And she is looking for her baby because, as it turns out, while Unity Kincaid was asleep, someone, which we will find out later, had a child with her, and the child was brushed away and given up for adoption. Cut to a few decades later, she has a granddaughter named Rose, who is the main character of the story of the Doll's House, and it's essentially Rose's adventures to reunite her family because her grandmother has just woken up. Her mother, for the purposes of the show, is dead. Her brother is still missing because he was put in the foster system, and she essentially runs afoul of odd characters in the dreaming and waking worlds in search of her missing brother and trying to reunite her family, more or less. That's about as Cliff Notesy as I can get into without a 20-minute recap.
Boy, one cannot drink that much Czech red cream soda without needing to hit the head a couple times. Okay, so anywho, how far did you get?
I gave the most bare bones of bare bones. Like,
that's fine. In all honesty, on this section, I don't think I could do a page to episode to episode recap, because it all kind of just became one story to me.
Yeah, I have to tell you that when I revisit the Sandman, which is often, the two sections I skip over the most often are the most human sections, which are Doll's House and Game of You, because I'm more interested in the dream shenanigans.
I can't do that. I love both those stories. If I'm being completely honest, one of the reasons why I haven't been so gung-ho to continue the Sandman series, I did a series of videos breaking down all of the books and such. It's on Old Man Comics. Please go check it out.
Yeah, and they were commissioned on my behalf for my birthday one year. That was cool.
The reason why I haven't been so gung-ho to finish is because the kindly ones.
And the wake. Oh my god, I hate the ending. I
Kindly
hate
ones
the
to
ending
me
so
is
much.
it's got horrible art, and that's the one I'm on right now, and it's like, oh god.
Yeah, the end. Sandman is one of the greatest comics ever written, and it is one of the comics that I would genuinely consider literature. It has one of the worst endings in comic book history, though, because in defiance of all the in-universe logic, in defiance of all the underlying philosophy that he had set up until this point in 75 issues, Neil Gaiman decides that the eternal anchor of all things Dream has to die so that DC can't screw around with the character after he's done with it. And it's not handled well by in-universe rules at all, because even if you wanted to ding Dream for all the amoral things he does, one of the reoccurring lines for the Endless in the story is, I'm not good or evil, I'm just me, because they're not supposed to be good or evil, they're supposed to be their concepts. Like Desire is a narcissistic twit because Desire feeds on, desire, and when desires are satisfied, they disappear. So Desire makes sure that you remain in Desire's control as long as it can. Dream creates both dreams and nightmares because he doesn't discriminate. Death brings death to everyone in all circumstances, and
but
so on.
I gotta admit, I do like the Doll's House. But when I was watching this, I was watching it at this point in time. I am on. I got everything ready. I got the auction all set up, and all I am doing is bagging and backboarding comics to make sure everything's looking good for the auction. So I'm basically this all throughout, and I am so freaking dead set on this freaking TV show. It doesn't break up for me. And that's one thing about it. I'm telling you, I really enjoyed this TV show. So I like the character. I like the young actress who played Rose. She was fine. Corinthian, I kind of dug him as well. So she goes about trying to find her brother, of course, who's been kidnapped. And I was wondering how they were going to handle this, but he is being hidden by a nightmare who wants to be a dream. And that's and she is making this little boy into a superhero that protects his neighborhood, protects his town. And the superhero he's made into is Jack Kirby's Sandman. Now in the comic book, I believe it was the Jack Kirby Sandman, but it was like the Infinity Inc. one.
It was Hector Hall.
Hector Hall, yeah.
It was Hector Hall and Fury Hippolyta.
Yeah.
That was
so it was done okay. It was weird. That kind of a thing was a slap to.
Yeah, it was jarring that it wasn't Brute and Blob. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, I gotta say, I liked it. I liked that whole segment. I liked the but I was a little slapped in the face by seeing a little kid in the Jack Kirby Sandman outfit. I was like, are you guys taking the piss?
Yeah,
taking the piss out of Jack Kirby here, because you don't do that.
There's another little element that made me go, I'm not sure how I feel about this, which is in the comic, the family that Jed, who is the brother, winds up with are very obviously and over the toply abusive to him, as only a 90s comic would be.
But
it was both the husband and the wife that were being abusive to him. In the show, they go all toxic masculinity over it, and now the wife is a victim over it.
You know what? We're there. Why not? Okay. Also, something we haven't talked about is that around this point we also see desire and we see despair. Now, obviously, desire is played by a transsexual man. That's fine. It's desire.
It fits with desire. And
exactly.
Yeah.
That being said, once again, I already pointed to there's not a lot. They did a lot of race swapping, but they never swapped out the evil white person. And what's worse, and this is of all the things that I've looked at and I went, guys, you could not possibly do this. You're talking about inclusion and then you do this. And it pissed me off. And it might be because these is my people. Despair looks like freaking Honey Boo Boo's mama. They didn't freaking color her up to look like any kind of creature or anything. It is a white, fat Southern woman. And as a white, fat Southern man, you, okay? Let's get that going. But that was something I noticed. There's only like one black serial killer at the serial convention. All of the truly evil people in this entire series.
Also, while we're momentarily harping on this, going back a little bit, did you notice the thing I noticed about the whole Ethel Cripps subplot?
Ethel Cripps.
In the Ethel Cripps subplot in the comic, it was Ethel Cripps and Ruthven Sykes who vamoosed because they were in a relationship with each other. In this show, number one,
there's people who don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about, and I saw the show.
Yeah, okay. Ruthven Sykes was a member of the order that helped Roderick Burgess bind Dream in the comics, and there was a schism in that order, and eventually Ruthven Sykes and the mistress of Roderick Burgess and the mother of John Dee, Ethel Cripps, vamoose, and they take all of Dream's swag with them. In the show, however, number one, Ruthven Sykes is played by a black dude, which I only mentioned because it's going to become very hilariously ironic in 5 seconds. And Ethel Cripps leaves him on his own and goes herself, who is a blonde white lady. And I'm just like, so you're telling me that you left out Ruthven Sykes' entire character and he's a black man, and you're focusing this entire subplot now not on the two of them together or him leaving or her leaving him later, but the blonde white lady being a strong independent woman who don't need no man.
Exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, that kind of bothered me. If you're going to do inclusion, be inclusive. But when I saw basically the white trash fat baby mama style of despair, I'm like, God dang, you guys are doing you have to be doing this on purpose.
I will give them some credit though, because as we mentioned previously, Desire is being played by a non-binary person. A gender neutral they them sort of person.
Oh, and by the way, I mean no disrespect to people. I do not respect the words and I do not respect the language. That's the big difference. So I have decided to not join in on the reindeer games. I love everybody individually, but I'm not paying attention to groups anymore. And that's why I say transsexual and not transgender anymore. I'm returning the language back to before everybody fucking screwed it up.
And that's as may be. But my point, and this is where I did have some respect for them, Desire is a very obvious villain in the book. Yes. And when the casting was announced, I was kind of terrified that they would either cause all sorts of controversy by making Desire the obvious villain they were in the comic, or that they would try to soften Desire's character. They do not soften Desire's character
not at all. I actually
Desire is still the manipulative, narcissistic puppet master of a concept that they always have been.
Okay, so I want to touch briefly upon the actual house and its characters within. I don't remember names. I do apologize, guys. Thanks for Dalton for catching this. In the dollhouse, and by the way, one of the reasons also why I don't like the fact that they play Despair as this and they're playing the abusive couple as only the man and that kind of thing is at this point they're in freaking Florida, kids. All right. And I already read a freaking comic book recently that is incredibly insulting to Floridians. Thank you very much, Mike Barron. Florida man. The fuck you thinking? Come on. Where the whole point about Florida man being crazy is that we're not stupid idiot hicks. and we still do the crazy thing. But that's how it's played out here. This guy that is abusing Rose's brother is so much of it's Renfield.
Barnaby. Yeah,
it's a freaking RKO villain. He might as well be twirling his mustache before he goes.
He's literally like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast or Biff Tannen from Back to the Future levels of subtle here.
There's no humanity to this character, and that's like, why is that woman with that man? You know, he is. If they
exist to be toxic masculinity, the character basically, or what they would define as toxic masculinity.
You know, I don't believe in toxic masculinity, but I get.
No, and I don't either. But what I'm saying is, in their parlance, in their framework, that's what they were going for.
Such a one-note character, but they end up rescuing the. Well, I should say the Corinthian ends up rescuing the son because he's looking for Rose. At this point, we find out that Rose is a vortex, a dream vortex, meaning she draws dreams to her, and her presence can destroy the dreaming.
Because there can only be one center of the dreaming, and as long as dream is still there, it has to be dream.
Right.
So when a human develops a dream vortex, it screws around with everything. So, although on the topic of the Corinthian, I found this hilarious. The Corinthian is actually nicer to Jed than Barnaby is, which means that the living nightmare, who's supposed to be the embodiment of everything wrong with humanity, is still nicer than the quote unquote toxic masculinity strongman.
He understands what it takes to cull a victim. And in this case, he wants to get Rose, so he needs that kid to come with him, and so he needs to
unharmed and so on.
He needs to present a better face, and so he takes the kid, and everything comes together, where Rose meets up with a Corinthian, and Rose meets up with this group of weird people in a house, and I want to talk about them because I loved it. I loved it. I liked them in the book, and I like them here. You get the two spider twins who have the largest collection of stuffed spiders. They're always dressed.
Chantal and Zelda. Yep.
And they're always dressed in black and black lace and such, and they look like the end of the Haunted Mansion ride. Hurry back, you know, that character. Then of course you've got Ken and Barbie. And yes, they make a point of it. Barbie's going to show up again in another season because she is Game of You. She's the lead character in a Game of You.
Yeah.
We get to see briefly in her dreams, and we get to see a couple of characters that are going to show up in Game of You as well. You've got the head of the household, who is a transvestite jazz singer.
Drag queen. Yeah.
That's the same thing. Oh, wait, no. Wesley Snipes put that down into Wong Fu. Thanks for everything, Julie Newmar. He says, I am not a transvestite, and he goes off on why drag queens are different. But
the Howland Dolly is intact, that dynamic.
And everything works. They're real people. They're fleshed out. Even in the book, actually, and this is done better in the TV show. In the book, the Spider Twins aren't really fleshed out. Here they are. I like this. I liked it a lot better in the TV show than I did the book.
Yeah, this was something I found a little odd, though, because of the parts of the Sandman that were kept, the most one-to-one is the human parts, and that kind of bothered me a little bit because, don't get me wrong, I love the human characters too, but if you're gonna focus on being accurate to anything, you should be focusing on your main characters who are all somehow tied into the dreaming.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, MK, to Wong Fu is a lot of fun. It really is a good show. But yeah, I was very happy that they kept these because those characters, they could have been cut for time. They could have been a hello, how are you? Oh, by the way, Gilbert's upstairs. Gilbert is an older man played by
Stephen Fry.
Stephen Fry, thank you. I was about to say, I know this guy.
He's the great and needs no introduction, Stephen Fry.
Of course. And we do catch up with him, and he kind of takes a fatherly, kind of a protective role for Rose,
as he also did in the comic.
Yeah, he does that in the comic as well. And so
although Rose is a lot more assertive when she's being mugged here than she was in the comic, which I couldn't help but think of, like, that's some.
Yeah, they can't have the man save the girl, so the girl's got to step up, protect herself. That's in the TV show. It's not in the comic book. In the comic book, Gilbert shows up and he
basically pulls a discount V for Vendetta, which I think is funny considering that Stephen Fry was also in that.
And so they meet up. Ultimately, they discover where the kid's going to be, and they meet up with a kid, and it ends up being at a hotel where they're having a serial convention. And of course, it's brought up by everybody. Wait a second, you don't allow children? We're looking for, because they asked, have you seen this kid? Oh, we don't have kids here. We don't even allow kids past this area. And he says, you don't allow kids into a serial convention? Of course you want them to be.
It would be, the toys and things and the mascots and yada, yada, yada.
And so Stephen Fry is Gilbert. He's going through all the rooms and they're talking. Basically, it's the people who make money through killing. And, you find it's a big old serial killer convention. And they're talking about
the double entendre with what the word serial means.
Yeah.
Is what's going on.
How can you make money, women in serial killing, all sorts of religion and serial killing. And he kind of goes, ding, holy shit, we got to get out of here. And as he steps out, he sees the Corinthian. And it seems as if they feel each other's presence. Kind of like Force style.
That was one of my favorite scenes, though, because it was unintentionally funny as heck. When he goes into the women in the business panel and she's going on about her speech of, like, I'm tired of women in our business being stereotyped as this, that, and the other. And he's like nodding along, and you can almost hear him going, yes, almost, yes, queen. And then he gets to she's a serial killer, and it's like,
Yeah, it's done very well. It's done very well. And Undead Quinn, yes, if there was a Mary Sue moment, it was little Rose. Remember, she is, and I mentioned this, she is supposed to look younger than she is. She's supposed to look like a teenager, even though she's in her 20s. And this young girl beats the crap out of a couple of, well, she doesn't beat the crap out of a couple of guys. She cuts them, basically. She
disarms them, though. I think.
Yeah.
In that scene.
But back to the serial convention. This is where, the kid is with the Corinthian, and he takes her to the serial convention because the Corinthian is the guest speaker. And he even, the kid's walking up. There's a character called Funland, and he even explains, "Oh well, I've got a great place to collect. It's got characters and rides, and it's got all sorts of kids running around getting lost, and it's even got quiet places where I can go and play with the children by myself." And of course, he's talking about
play, read, kill in this instance.
Yeah. He's not talking about anything sexual. He's talking about killing. But all the while, he's wearing kind of a cat helmet or a cat hat that is supposed
very reminiscent of some mouth ears that we
exactly. It was done even worse in the comic, but yeah, this little cat hat is supposed to represent the Mickey Mouse ear. So obviously he goes to Disney and does his serial killing. By the way, as someone who's lived in Florida all this time, I know for a fact that Disney hides deaths. Nobody dies on Disney property officially on paperwork. They always wait until
because that would break the illusion.
Exactly. So, now there have been many, many, many deaths, but yeah. As a matter of fact, the Contemporary Hotel used to be a suicide spot. You'd be able to walk up to the what do we call it? Top of the World. It's where the Contemporary Hotel restaurant was. You can walk out and watch the fireworks, and some people would just boo. Yeah. Anywho, on a happier note, let's get back to the serial killers. So the Funland decides he's taken an interest in the kid, and Corinthian says they're under my protection. But later in the show, Rose and the kid pass by Funland. Corinthian is standing up, giving his little address, and Funland notices the kid, and he follows him out. He gets with Rose, and so Funland decides to go on the hunt. He's going to kill these two, and that's when, of course, they get together. And it was the Corinthian, right, that kills Funland, if I remember.
Yeah,
correctly.
Yeah, that it missed out one of my favorite Dream moments in the comic was when she calls his name and Dream starts disciplining Funland by his actual name, because of course Dream knows every single human, because
they've all visited.
To put it in his words, they spend a third of their lives in my realm. Of course I know them all.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I liked this. I love the fact that they also included, Corinthian, after he's done with Funland. Morpheus goes, after Funland is taken care of, Corinthian goes to a speech, and Morpheus shows up, and he's like, "I'm disappointed in you. Look what you've done. Look what look what you have inspired. I have created you to be one of the greatest nightmares of all time, and this is what you did with it." And he's I
created you to be everything in humanity's darkness that they will not confront, and all you've given them is another thing to be afraid of. They already knew that there was things to be afraid of.
And so after that, Sandman says, "Okay, to punish you all, I'm going to let you know your true place in the world." Basically, some of them commit suicide, some confess, but basically the illusion that they're doing anything other than being the lowest of the low.
You have maintained comfortable illusions, comfortable dreams about being the mistreated heroes of your own story. Well, this is my judgment on you. I'm going to take it away, and you are going to see yourself as only what you are, and you are always going to know in the core of your being how little that actually means.
Now you're reading that, right?
No.
Jesus, Lord in heaven, you just quoted that?
No, I paraphrased it. It's not an exact quote, but that's the gist of it. No, it's not an exact quote, but that is the gist of it. Is everyone is the hero of their own story, including even serial killers. So Dream's judgment on them is, you will see yourselves as only what you are. You will be prevented from seeing yourselves as the hero of anything, and you most importantly will know how little you actually matter to the world.
Yeah. And everything's wrapped up. I'm trying to hurt. We're at the hour and a half version, so I apologize that we're skimping the dollhouse segment. And everything's wrapped up, and it basically sets up the next season by having Gwendolyn Christie reappear and saying, she's going to punish Morpheus and so forth and so on.
And also screw with God while she's at it, which is nice.
Exactly. Yes. And we know what's going to happen, of course, for those of you who've read the comic. So I'm very jazzed.
Or even know the Lucifer series.
I'd like to say hello to Naked HD. How do you do? And I'm glad to hear that your girls write first before they do what. Okay. Anywho, so yeah, there you go. Overall, and we'll get to some comments, and by all means, I want to hear how you guys like this as well. What's your overall feeling in give us 3 or 4 lines here?
I can't even be sad. I can't even be angry. I was going in this kind of expecting to have nerd rage, and I can't. I'm mostly just sad. I likened it before we came on to seeing the corpse of a dearly departed friend. Like the form of the person is still there. You can still notice all the contours of them, but the soul and the life and everything that you still love about them is now missing. And that's kind of what I'm feeling with this. It's either a image that's been put through a copier one too many times, or it's a corpse of someone that I used to really be fond of. And it's still a beautiful corpse, don't get me wrong, because it's still someone I used to care a lot about, but it is a corpse. There's no life and no soul to it anymore.
For something worse than this, I love that line. It looks like the corpse. Like if you want to, I don't know. Let me. What movie or something like that? What movie would really be the corpse of something you used to love? Because the Sandman is too good to be a corpse. This TV show is too. But I do like that. Like you're almost,
yeah. But the source material was capital A art, and this is just okay.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I'm trying to think what would be a movie that actually adapted a story, but did it so badly that it just doesn't fit. That would be something. But oh shit, I definitely didn't mean to do that. I was trying to block this fucker, and then when I clicked on it, moved. Okay, so there we go. But yeah, a photocopy of a photocopy. Okay, I understand, but once again, and I'm not putting down your opinion, but this is where you're coming from. You are somebody who knows this book left, right, up, down, forward, to the point where I and Homnus thought you were directly quoting a long paragraph from the show. I myself, I liked it. I got to tell you, I really enjoyed this. I understand that they have to make certain allocations. They got to make certain, what do you call it? Concessions. I get it. I get that TV shows have to do that if it's for budget or time or something along those lines. I get it. I understand. There were some things that bothered me about the show, but overall, I really enjoyed it. Is it the best adaptation in the world? No, it's very accurate to the book, but being accurate doesn't necessarily mean much. I think Infinity War was an incredible adaptation of the story, but it was nowhere near comic book accurate.
No, but it did its own thing and it made it work. Yeah. I don't think this pulled it off quite so well.
So yeah, I don't know if accuracy necessarily means better or worse. Obviously, we want to see the things that we've come to love in the comics on screen whenever they adapt something, and it hurts when you don't see that favorite part. You know, the crying out for Morpheus to help against Funland being one of those things, or the line I mentioned earlier. Obviously, that kind of thing.
The one I missed most was the passenger speech, the "I am moving through your dreams" speech.
But overall, I thought that this was very solid. So once again, 1 out of 1 to 10, 1 and 2 being horrible, 3 and 4 being bad, 5 and 6 being average, 7 and 8 being good, 9 and 10 being excellent. Where would you put this TV show at?
5.
5, right in the center. On the low side of average.
I wanted to say 4, but the extra point is for the actors, because like I say, even though everything around the actors is either bad cliff notes, skipping over, focusing on things that weren't even in the books for longer than they focus on things that were, for all of the, for all of that this is a corpse, the actors are trying their hardest because they know how important this story is, and they want to leave their mark on it. And I really wish the writing and the show they were in helped them out more, but I can't hate the actors. The characters, the actors are still trying to imbue the writing with the characters they're supposed to be playing. Desire is still a slappable little crap. All the characters are still trying to be the characters. It's just everything else around them, not so much. But I can't fault the actors. The actors really tried. Hopefully, in another 30 years, when I'm like 57, we'll get a better adaptation.
I'm thinking it's 8 or 9 for me. I really enjoyed this, and talking about it, just even with the flaws I found in it, it didn't really hurt it. I'm going to go 8 though, because I want to be more honest about things. So it's very, 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 very good. I don't know if it reaches the point of excellence or not for the stuff that pulled me out of the story. Hopefully that won't happen in season 2. Hopefully there will be a season 2. So yeah, Undead Quinn is saying 5 out of 10. Maranya is bringing up the fact that Iron Man 3 misused the Extremists and the Mandarin storylines. So that's one of those that just kind of doesn't.
Yeah. I guess that's a good analogy for this for me. This is to my Sandman fandom what Iron Man 3 is to Maranya's Iron Man fandom.
I get that. A lot of the stuff you and I talked about, we just interpreted it different. And you went about and you didn't like, but I liked, or I wasn't bothered by it so much. Overall, I would recommend people check this out. If you got Netflix, give it a try. Seriously, you watch an hour, and if it doesn't work for you, don't watch the next.
And one way or another, also read the comic. Or Audible did a pretty serviceable job adapting it in Audible format. There's a 3-part Audible audio drama that you can get with an Audible membership. Just do it. It's a good time. And James McAvoy is an excellent voice get for Dream in the audiobook as well. And Tom Sturridge, his voice was trying, his makeup was lacking.
So I found this at Ollie's right here. This is an annotated Sandman book. I am no longer able to ship until the post office gets large boxes anymore. I'm no longer able to ship big books like this, so I'm not going to be having them in the auctions. Mm-hmm. But this is issues 50 to 60 something.
That would be, I think, around
40 to 56.
Right, that would be around Calliope, I think. Calliope and Calliope through
the Augustus stories, and it would be after the Season of Mist, right?
Okay, yeah.
That brings us to issue.
It was 75 issues total, so I'm trying to think. Yeah.
That would the Season of Mist brings us to 29 or 30 or something like that.
Thanks. Yeah, because it's 8 every volume, so 8, 16.
Yeah. Oh, this is in black and white too. It's the story where they go and find destruction.
Okay, so yeah, it would be starting around August all the way through, all the way through whatever the story where they find destruction is called.
Yeah. I did not know this. I bought this. I hadn't opened it because I was going to use it strictly for the auction. But since I can't send. Oh, it's got the Arabian Nights in it as well.
Right, because that's right after Emperor of the United States story.
There. Oh, I love that. That is such a great story, man.
Yeah, all the best Sandman stories are the Dream just bebopping around the centuries being Dream ones.
I'll tell you something.
The actual plots are cool too, but the best stories are the ones where Dream is just doing his Dream thing.
One thing I love about this book, if I find more, I want these because, and I guess it would be a good reason to get the absolute versions. But one thing I like about this books are the panels are big and the words are big. For my old ass eyes.
Yeah, the absolute editions is definitely on some list somewhere if I could find them. I already have the hardcover omnibus editions, which, by the way, if you're in the market for a way to read the Sandman and you're not gonna miss $200, each of the hardcover omnibus editions, of which there are two of them for the main story and 3 of them if you want the spin-offs, they're $70 a piece. So if you're willing to blow about $200,
I might just do that. One thing I do like is in the Sandman comics, there's a lot of calligraphy and there's a lot of cursive and such like that, which I gotta admit, these days my eyes just can't put together anymore.
Yeah, I can relate. I was born with optic nerve damage, so sometimes my eyes just don't want to track a page.
Yeah. But there you go, guys. The TV show, obviously, I'm recommending. He's saying,
listen to the Audible version or read the original comic, and then if you still need a Sandman fix, then watch the show. I wouldn't recommend doing it before.
Definitely, we recommend the comic books, or at least he recommends all of them. I recommend you skip the kindly ones.
Yeah. Okay. I will say that. Like I said earlier, Sandman is one of the greatest, most literary comic books ever written. It has one of the worst endings possible because it makes no sense by the in-universe logic. It makes no sense philosophically. It just happens that way because Gaiman didn't want to allow DC to have access to Dream after he was done with it. Never mind that DC has used the character of Death several times, and every time they do, he ends up complimenting them on it, which makes me go, well, gee, if you had just done the smart thing and let Dream live at the end, because, he's endless, you could have had that same reaction when they used Dream as well. But instead, we have Daniel Hall, who's a freaking Mary Sue demigod twat who makes no freaking sense in universe. Yeah.
What do you really
That's another rant for another day. But yeah, read the Sandman and skip the last 3 volumes. The ending sucks.
Okay, so there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the rundown of the TV show. We tend to get together to do these superhero rundowns, and they tend to be as long as the movies themselves. Yeah. But there you go. I hope you liked it. And
this one was movie length. It just wasn't 10 hours.
Yeah, it wasn't. So we did frustrate ourselves for 10 hours on this. Yes. By all means, let me know in the comment section and such after this is set. Just say, hey, okay, liked it, gonna see it, whatever, to help the algorithm on these longer live streams so I don't have to boot them. From here on in, anything over a certain length, I'm putting on the members only section as well. So once again, thank you very much for hanging out. I do want to get together. I do want to talk about Prey. And I want to do a review of a movie called They, Them. I don't know if that needs this long ass thing. I could probably do that as a video on my own, but I watched a horror film called They, Them, and it's definitely worth talking about. It's definitely, before I do a video, don't watch it, guys. Let me help you out. Don't watch this piece of shit. But yeah, I want to talk about Prey as well because I'm getting pissed.
So join us next time when I get roped into watching Prey, which I had no interest in, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Check it out. All righty, guys. Yeah, the Kevin Bacon movie, MK. Thanks for hanging out with us as always. Please go on over to Ko-Fi, drop $1 in the tip jar for us. Don't mind doing that. Don't mind helping out the channel. And to everyone, all the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching. You kids have a great